Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. I'm pleased to welcome you all to this webinar on Moroccan Financial System. Our conference today is a part of our English program training with the Al University. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Al University for their continuous engagement and the high quality of the training they are providing. I would like also to thank our Director of General and Administrative Affairs who had this idea and encouraged us to improve our English because all the staff of our ministry needed a lot. I also would like to express my thanks to Dr. Samir Agnaou for accepting to animate this webinar on Moroccan financial system. This is a subject in which we should all be deeply interested because, as you all know, the coronavirus-19 crisis has presented governments with unprecedented challenge. We knew it before COVID-19, and the crisis has confirmed the role of financial sector in the economy. Dr. Samir Agnaou, let me introduce you, please. So you are well placed to address the key themes of Moroccan financial system as well as the challenges of financial inclusion and Islamic banking. Indeed, you are specialized in financial intermediation and inclusion, microstructure of financial markets, emerging financial markets, and corporate governance. You are an associate professor of finance and the chair of program development and innovation in the School of Business Administration, Al University. You were a part-time lecturer at the School of Management and Business of the University of Wales, Aberystwyth, from where you received your PhD in 2007. You have also publications in reputable finance journals, such as the European Journals of Finance and Journal of Futures Markets. Before to conclude, I just want to point out that the presentation will last for about 20 minutes, and we will allocate 30 minutes for the discussion in the end. So I sincerely hope that the conference will be worthwhile and instructive, and I strongly encourage you also actively participate and debate. So without any further ado, I will give the floor to Dr. Agnaou. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, fine. Thank you, Mrs. Hamamouche. I would like first to thank the Institute of Finance, and here I'm namely referring to Sil Asali and yourself for letting this event happen. And all this is done in partnership, as you said, with Al University. And you also refer to the fact that it's within an English program. So it's this idea that pushed me to think about a topic that is still a general topic, hence the title, The Moroccan Financial System. It's not a detailed contribution nor scientific one. The field of finance is mastered by your institution, your honorable institution. Here I'm referring to the Ministry of Economy and Finance. I'm referring to HCP au Commissariat au Plan, and last but not least, Bank Al Maghrib. So it's a modest contribution from myself, so that, as you said, the objective is to generate the discussion. So without further delays, I'm moving to the outline. And as you can see, an introduction. After this, I'll be moving to the agents of the financial system in Morocco. And this is a bit descriptive because I have to present quickly these agents. Moving then later to the macro-financial context, the financial system resilience. And when I refer to the resilience and also this macro-prudential oversight, as well as the crisis management, part of it might be linked to what we are all living right now, which is the COVID-19. You see, but before this, we went through different crises. The last one was the one dating back to 2008, the international one. And then now we are still suffering from the bad effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then I will conclude with the financial inclusion that you are all familiar with. So this is my outline. Now, it is about a financial system, so then there is definitely a need to define a financial system. So as we all see here, it's a complex structure that encompasses any type of financial transactions and that links borrowers, investors, and lenders. A borrower is somebody or an institution that is in need of cash. A lender is a one or an institution that is having an excess of cash. And an investor is there to make money. So a financial system, this is where these agents, all of them, borrowers, investors, and lenders, are together. So a financial system includes all types of financial services that we, all of us, be it as an individual or institutions, are using and relying on. Financial market and institutions. And if we refer to financial market institutions, again, this is where borrowers and users of money are getting together. A financial system can be firm-specific, national, regional, global, urban, rural, you name it. So this is then a general introduction of what we will be referring to. It's for sure that an entire financial system cannot be covered in 20 minutes. So that's why my presentation will be a bit brief. So the agents of the Moroccan financial system. Morocco has been doing a lot on an institutional basis back 2007. So, and here, this is to follow, the instructions of the International Organization of Security Commission's principles. And this has led, to the creation of l'Autorité Marocaine des Marchés des Capitaux, namely the Capital Market Authority, and all this to meet the organization's standards of independence, registration, certification of financial services providers. And the objective, as you can see, protecting the investment in financial instruments, ensuring a kind of integrity and transparency, because without it, we can't even, interest the investor, be it a national investor, let alone the international investor, and then setting rules, for professional practices and practical applications of laws and regulations. Among some of these regulations, the ones that are linked to insider trading and market manipulation. And insider trading, as you all know, especially if among the audience I'm having experts in finance, ce sont les délits d'initiés. We've suffered a lot from this back in 2007, where Morocco at that time was not prepared. And the idea here is that you succeed in beating the market by relying on a private information. And this is illegal. The difficulty here is how to prove this. So in US, there are too developed regarding this, and we've seen sanctions going to, hundreds of years in the case of Ponzi system, and then different institutions that, or, investors that have been profiting from this. So we are still learning. The rules are there, and let's succeed in putting them into effect. Going in line again with the agents of the Moroccan financial system, Maroclear, as we all see, it's an institution that started back in 1997. It's the central security depository of securities in Morocco. And as we see here, it ensures the dematerializations of securities. It provides the platform for transactions of securities, and it's doing its best to manage the current security accounts. Referring to a financial system without referring to a stock exchange in any country has nonsense. So here, that's why what you see in front of you, the Casablanca Stock Exchange. The source here, as you see, is Moroccan Chiffre 2019, waiting for the one, of 2020 to be ready. You may correct me, so it might be already there, but, I couldn't have access to it. So the total capitalization, la capitalisation boursière, is around 626. So again, please, some of these figures might be updated. So why? Because those of 2020 are not, here. 75 companies listed, so plus or minus one, depending on those that were withdrawing or delisted. And here we can see that specific sectors are representing a huge proportion of the total capitalization. And we see that finance, telecommunication, and construction is accounting for 68%. And fortunately or unfortunately, we are having 3 large banks, and we all know who they are. I'm referring here to Tijari, BMC, and Banque Populaire. They are accounting for 30%. And this is a big percentage. And all this is raising this concern of liquidity. Liquidity, how is it defined? It's the easiness of converting an asset into cash. This is how we generally define the liquidity. But some are seeing it in terms of volume, how much is sold and how much is bought on a daily basis. So it all depends on the topic. And some are here referring it to the difference between the bid and the ask. So again, as I told you, I'm not giving here a lecture, far from this. I'm still going into a general description of a system so that everyone, whatever their background, will be, having the opportunity to intervene, and, we learn from each other. An important institution that is definitely contributing a lot to the success of our system, it's here the Bank of the Banks, the Central Bank of Morocco, led by the governor and also the board. He's in the board of Al Akhawain University, and he has been doing a great job. So here, Bank Al Maghrib is an institution, as you can see, a public legal entity endowed with financial autonomy. And lately, there was a law that, pushed more for its independence. That is important. If we have a central bank that is not independent, then, it's questionable. It should be independent. So its main missions, as we see, exercising the privilege of issuing banknotes, coins that are legal tender in the kingdom. And here I will link it to the pandemic, because that's what Mrs. Hammouche indirectly referred to. Back in March, where, by the way, this presentation was supposed to be given, but then it was postponed for almost 11 months. I go back to the concern here is that Bank Al Maghrib has been doing a lot regarding, the withdrawal of money. At the beginning of the pandemic, we all were worrying about what to eat, and also worrying about our currency, our money. And many of us were on the verge of withdrawing the cash on a regular basis, but Bank Al Maghrib, did its best to maintain, through the different ATMs all along the country, so that the money is there. Why? Because the risk of withdrawing a lot of money is definitely a contingent, thing that the central bank is definitely afraid of. So here we understand that deposits are kind of risky for a bank, especially if all of them are withdrawing, at the same time. So here, this is just to link it to the pandemic. So the main missions, again, second point, implement monetary policy instrument to ensure price stability. So when we refer to price stability, then it's mainly inflation. And how it is assessed, it's done by paying attention to CPI, Consumer Price Index. Another of its mission is to elaborate and control and enforce also the monetary policy. So monetary policy, we said it. So for example, in US, it's the high employment, le plein emploi, and then we have the inflation targeting that is also happening here. Another example of its missions is to ensure the smooth running of the money market, le marché monétaire, that is in the short term, and supervise it, ensuring currency stability and convertibility, that is linked also to managing officially exchange rate reserves. So I know that a lot has been done the last years, and especially here with the bond, moving from plus minus 2.5% to 5%. So these are details for, people who are aware of this. And then the last mission is to monitor systems and means of payments, les moyens de paiement, les systèmes de paiement, and ensure their security and the relevance of applicable standards. So this is what Bank Al Maghrib has been doing, and doing it, with a great efficiency. And that's why, by the way, the Si Jouahri has been, for I think the last consecutive years, getting a prize as the best governor of a central bank all over the world. So structure of the banking system, the number of credit institutions and similar body licensed in Morocco is around 86, composed of 24 banks, of which we have 5 Islamic or participative. We prefer participative rather than Islamic banks. And then 28 finance companies, les sociétés de financement, and 6 offshore banks, bank offshore, and then 13 micro credit associations, 13 payment and money transfer institutions, and then the 2 other important institutions, namely la CCG, la Caisse Centrale de Garantie, the Central Guarantee Funds, and last but not least, la CDG, the Deposit and Management Fund. So CDG is a government-owned institution holding, a huge percentage of public savings, through its insurance branches, and it's investing mainly in, tourism. And I think that's the right time to change, the direction of the investments. How is our banking system? So it's characterized by its openness to international markets, which is reflected in the presence of foreign institutions, but with mainly French origin, and we understand why, and figures are there to show it. And again, you can see the 3 powerful banks that are, accounting for 2/3, of the banking system. And these banks are currently expanding, mainly in Africa, few parts of Europe and Asia. And this doesn't go without any risk. That has to be, calculated risks, risk calculé. The network, these are figures just for your knowledge, and the source, is as usual, Bank Al Maghrib, then we can get it from the last report. We should not ignore, the mutual funds here, les organismes de placement collectif immobilier. So there are a pool of funds used by investors in financial assets they don't have a direct access to. If I have an amount of money, but I don't have, the expertise, then it's better to get in touch with these institutions. There are definitely what we name entry and exit fees, management fees, and then all I have to do is to pay attention to their performance on a daily basis by referring to, la valeur liquidative. So as you see, there are more than 400 mutual funds in Morocco with different categories, monétaire, obligataire, and contractuel, diversifié, you name it. Here, it's a point I thought about including, and I know some of you might tell me, oh, it's far from the banking system, but it's definitely going in line with a good banking system. So I wanted to include this part linked to doing business, 2021, it's the last report. And here, this doing business project is providing objective measures of business regulations in over 190 countries. And we can see the ranking of Morocco, it's 53, a score of 73.4, following different topics. And these topics are shown to all of us here, up from opening a business to getting a location, into having access to financial resources, dealing with day-to-day operations, and then ending up operating in a secure business environment. And you can see at the bottom the main elements or criteria relied on for each one of these components, and all of them, as we see, are important. Here, employing workers, dealing with construction permits, yes, getting electricity, registering property, getting credit, protecting minority investors, taxes, trading across borders, contracting with the government, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency. So here, that foreign investors are too reluctant if the legal system is not well prepared. So, that they always protect themselves. And I think we've all have been suffering from the case of the company Samir, Société Anonyme Marocaine d'Industrie de Raffinage. So it is a concern, and we should always remember this. Here, the legal form studied is SARL. Some of you might refer also to SARLO, so responsabilité limitée associée, unique. Here, it takes an average of 4 procedures to complete, from pre-registration to obtaining approval. The time to complete, each procedure is around 9 days, and the official costs are 3.6 of income per capita. And this is compared to a few countries that are competing to us in the MENA region. So 6.5, 19 days, 9.7, sorry, and then 16.7 So in this, aspect, Morocco is doing well. So here, score of 93 is allowing Morocco to rank 43. France is 37th, and our dear neighbor is around 152. Great. Here, going still in line with doing business studies. So here, the time, cost, and outcome of insolvency proceedings involving domestic legal entities. I already referred to this and gave the example of our dear company Samir. So these variables are used to calculate the recovery rate, which is recorded as cents on the dollar recovered by secured creditors through reorganization, liquidation, or debt enforcement. These are the steps that the company Samir is living with and Sandiki and Sidus. For Morocco, the time required to recover debt, including appeals and requests for extension, is 3.5 years. So regarding this point, we are not doing that well, especially that we see in the MENA region, the number of years is just 2.7. Here, the recovery rate for creditors is 28.7 cents, whereas it's less in some MENA countries, 27.3. And then again here, the cost required to recover the debt measured as a percentage of the debtor's estate value is around 18, whereas it's around 14 in the MENA. So here you can see that Morocco has definitely to enhance its rating and ranking. Great. With your permission, I'll be moving now to the insurance sector. Insurance sector, we all know that Morocco, by the way, is doing well in the Africa region. I think after South Africa, Egypt, we are ranked 3rd. So the insurance sector is regulated, as you all know, by l'ACAPS, l'Autorité de contrôle des assurances et de la prévoyance sociale, which is the supervisory authority of insurance and social welfare. So the insurance sector is comprised by 19 insurance and reinsurance companies, with the top 5 accounting for nearly 3/4 of the total premiums, les primes d'assurance. So here we can see that the market is getting too concentrated, and I'm afraid here that it might be at the expense of the customer. So when the market is too concentrated, I hope the customer is not left at the last resort. So here at the bottom of the slide, you have the duties of l'ACAPS. So, they are there to give, to control the sector, give the chart, les autorisations, and so forth. And also, let's say, allow the release of insurance product, like what the bank, the central bank is doing for commercial and Islamic banks. I'm now moving to retirement organism, pension funds. So you all know, because, myself or yourself, I think in your case, and correct me, it's CMR, so la Caisse Marocaine de Retraite. In my case here in AUY, and which is weird, by the way, we are a public university, but we have CNSS and CMR. So I don't know the why, by the way. Anyway, CNSS, Caisse Nationale de Sécurité Sociale, RCAR, and then CMR. That decisions are made. So, I keep reading it from here and there. So are we going into a private public, polls, if I will say, we leave it to, to the future to see in which direction our retirement is going. The extent that, some are even afraid of continue contributing. So, and, for these different institutions, you can see, for example, CMR, its reserve of pension funds will be exhausted by 2022. But I hope with the last decisions that were made under the former government, problems are postponed. For CNSS, 2042, so still having enough time. FCAR, financial difficulties, these are projections by 2037. CMR, that moved now into Société Mutuelle de Retraite, because we all know in the past it was, owned by a set of employers. To make it stronger on an institutional basis, we changed its, identity to, as I said, Société Mutuelle de Retraite. Great. Here, micro-financial context, a bit of history. I know the global crisis goes back now to almost 12 or 13 years. So Morocco didn't suffer a lot, financially speaking. So as you see, banks' limited exposure, low private and public foreign debt, and then limited linkage of the Moroccan system to the global financial market. You know, what's that percentage in the Casablanca Stock Exchange that is linked to abroad? So, but we did suffer economically. Financially, we didn't, but economically, we suffered. Why? Because our partners, namely few countries in Europe and US, suffered, so we suffered. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, now the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are still to be assessed. It's still going on. Yes, there were decisions that were made in that regard. I referred to some of them earlier. The key rate was decreased to almost 1.5. As I told you, central bank has been doing a great job. There were even some royal decisions in the sense of encouraging, young entrepreneurs, you name it. There are decisions. There was, an amendment of the Finance 2020, bill, la loi de finance. So all these are, examples of adjustment that, authorities have been relying on to adjust or, update and be, to some extent, ready to face the bad effects of the pandemic. So financial system resilience. So banks in Morocco are profitable to high interest margin, but here it's mainly at this stage, high commissions and low expenses. So the commissions are high and les frais, this is how banks are starting now to make a lot of money. Banks have been asked to send a list of risky loans to Bank Al Maghrib. We imposed 10% provisional requirements. There is a concern of liquidity, and that's what the central bank is trying to pay attention to on a regular basis. And potential vulnerabilities due to the expansion in SSA, and here I'm referring to Sub-Saharan Africa, Tijari, and then, the two other banks are involved, they are involving all their resources on a regular basis in this part of, the world, and we understand for political and also economic and financial justifications. The stress testing, we all know that it's done on a regular basis. La direction de la supervision bancaire of Bank Al Maghrib is taking care of this, and it's too detailed here. So test covered 8 banks, 90% of the banking system assets, and these stress tests examined the resilience of the banking system to the main risk, namely solvency, liquidity, and contingent risks. Again, going into this micro-prudential oversight, there is a new banking law that has set up a micro-prudential policy commitment in which the central bank plays a leading role. And there was a setting of the coordination committee for systematic risk surveillance that is composed of supervisory of banks, pensions, and insurance funds, as well as your honorable institution. The new central bank law stipulates that BAM will contribute to the stability of the financial system directly by proposing to the government any measure intended to maintain the financial system as stable as possible. The 8 risk mapping system, in themselves, every risk should take a lecture, you see. So the macroeconomic risk, the liquidity risk, the monetary financial conditions, credit risk, real estate risks, soundness of financial institutions, the market risk, and the contingent risks. So as I told you, your questions are welcomed if you want me, but knowing that I only have 20 minutes, I cannot dig deeply into each one of these risks. Now, crisis management and financial safety. The new banking law grants Bank Al Maghrib additional powers for early intervention and actions as the request for a recovery and the resolution plan for banks of systematic importance, prudential requirements, the prohibition or limitation of dividends to shareholders, and then as far as this deposit guarantee fund, that is currently around 80,000. I hope it will increase to 100,000. So I'm not sure if it's already done. An important element, in itself, it's a topic, c'est l'inclusion financière. So we've been benefiting from it. So just defining it as a concept. Is it then, the extent of, every one of us having a banking account, having or using or relying on, financial services? But, Morocco has made a great progress in financial inclusion. Please, the figures are not, that standardized. So in some resources, it's around 70s, in others, it's 50s. So what we can confirm, yes, this bankerization. It's also named, by the way, penetration rate. They mean the same thing. La Poste, yeah, so that is becoming now a bank. So the transformation of postal financial services has helped, let's say, into increasing this penetration rate. And it did allow indirectly to allow, people with low income to have access, to few financial services. The microfinance sector, les associations de microcrédit, by the way, I mean, I keep saying it, I'm highly surprised with the level of interest rate they keep charging. They are unbelievable, reaching 40% or 50% and going beyond, because I can see few cases here in the region where we have, people with irregular and low income. They rely on the principle of, sorry to say it in Arabic, shuha. In the case that when you don't pay, they stop by your house and then, make you regret relying on them. Again, as I told you, they start at least with 20%, and sometimes they can move to even 40 to 50%. And to me, it's huge. Here, going still in line with, helping increase in the financial inclusion, it's the introduction of new financial products, better risk management and supervision. And here again, high number of ATMs, the easiness to get loans, and, new technologies, mobile payments. So we are waiting for it. And all this goes into increasing the financial inclusion in our lovely country. I'm coming to a conclusion, as you can see here. And then again, please don't hesitate to ask questions, because that's the objective. So our financial system is definitely an upward trend. But I understand that the COVID pandemic did stop it to some extent, as it did in different parts of the world. But we do still have banks that are a bit strong, and all this is coming from the key, supervision, regular control of the central bank. And here I'm ending my, presentation with the main idea is that the central bank is doing a great job, continuing job in monitoring, controlling, and implementing regulation. The floor is yours, please, and I'll be happy to learn from you. Comments, questions, I'm here for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Agnew, for your enlightening presentation, which give us a wide idea about wide basis of financial institution in Morocco and their roles, their missions. It was also about macro financial context, how Morocco made great progress in financial inclusion and how he managed the crisis. We believe that Morocco enjoys a particular advantage in the region, thanks macroeconomic credibility and political stability. So once again, I thank you very much, Dr. Agnew. But we need to give other attendees a chance to ask questions. This is the objective of this webinar. But also, it was very interesting. Your presentation was very interesting. So I give now. I activate my sound. So I will ask everybody to shut down the sound. And when you want to ask a question, can you put your hands up so as to give you the floor? We have 75 for about 75 or about 82 attendees, guests. Thank you all for coming. So I give you the floor to ask your questions. Okay, so I give the floor to Mrs. Maria Oussib. Maria Oussib, do you hear me?
Yes, Sonia, I hear you.
Yeah, please, can you ask your question? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, hi everybody. I am Maria Oussib. I am head of division of multilateral financing in the budget direction of Ministry of the Finance, Economy and Administration Reform.
Okay.
I would first of all to thank the Mr. Agnew for his intervention, which allows us to learn or recycle or retrain on the Moroccan financial system regarding to the actors, sectors, resilience, risk, and crisis, and also to improve our English. I would also like to reiterate my thanks to the Institute of Finance for organizing training seminars and webinars, all current and interesting. This said, I would like to have the opinion of the intervenant on a few general points. It is the occasion to speak English, but I will put these questions, hoping to have feedback on these general points. The first point is what can we report to the current Moroccan financial system in relation to the role it plays and the current players or actors in order for companies to better contribute to the economic development of our country, of Morocco. That is the first point. The second point is related to the new economic model. Under the new economic model, how the Moroccan financial system tool can be brought to play a more active role. I know that it's just a rule and there is political things and regulation, but can we propose something in the new economic model to make this tool be more active, having more active role. The third point and the last one, you spoke about the Bank al Maghrib, which is the supervisor, sure, which make good monetary politic. It's sure, but regarding to this constance, can we do more better concerning regulation for the same objective, to have companies be able to make risks and to be more active in our economy. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Usib. I think the second question is a large topic. We can also to organize another webinar for only this question, new economic model. It can be interesting to discuss it widely. But I give the floor to Mr. Agnew.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, fine. So I said earlier, I'm thanking first Mrs. Maria for her questions and for her interest in the topic, and also in learning the language. We keep learning, so this is the philosophy. Here I agree with you, Mrs. Mamosho, that the second question is a kind of general one, new economic model. And I'll be then referring mainly to the two questions. The first one, to have an economic development, what should be done? Here, I think that in the past, banks were too reluctant to give a loan, and we understand this. And if it's not that last support by our King Mohammed VI, I don't think that small and medium enterprises would have access, to loans with almost no collateral and at that interest rate. So I say it, I've been in charge of the incubator at Al-Akhawayn University. We had some, this goes back almost to 2007. A lot of corporations with encouraging business plans that were not funded because of one thing. They didn't have the money. When you don't have collateral, don't expect the banking system to follow. That's one thing. Second thing, we shall not only blame it on institutions. We only blame it on us, citizens. for me, the development before being an economic one, it first has to be what human development. So, نبدأ بالإنسان. And here, when I say this, education is a concern. So, education first, and then we move into economics, into financial, let's say, things. I know the topic is the financial banking system, but knowledge is power to me. So, yes, institutions, and here I refer to banks, and I also referring to the Lambda citizen, me and you. Your third question is linked to Bank al-Maghrib. So Bank al-Maghrib has been doing a good job. So when you say more rules, which type of rules, you want to refer to? Is it from safer point of view? Is it, transparency? So I think a lot has been done in this regard. We do things, Bank al-Maghrib is doing things step by step, moving slowly and smoothly. It's for sure that we cannot reach the level of developed countries, but we are doing pretty well as far as, the majority of African countries and emerging countries.
Thank you, Mr. Agnew.
Do you want me to specify the rules, what I referred to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I am just talking and thinking in the same time. I think what do Bank al-Maghrib is good and is necessary. But what I mean is that there is prudential rules what are necessary, but these rules may be a constraint for the companies to be more active. Regarding to these constraints, is there any way for the Bank al-Maghrib to do better, to have prudential rules and to permit the companies to be more active? I don't know if you understand.
No. So at the same time, thank you so much for the clarification, Mrs. Maria. So you are referring to these prudential rules. Sometimes these prudential rules, a lot of constraint and control may hamper you in your actions. We should not forget that what's that percentage, let's say, of big corporations and companies in the Moroccan context. We still have 95% of our corporations being small and medium enterprises, if it's not very small, très petite entreprise. So this is the main concern. These corporations you are referring to, Mrs. Maria, they represent only 5% or even less than this. The ones that are structured, regulated, financially speaking, not having any concern, respecting the law the way it should be. You are aware of it. La DGI now is moving to les factures, and a huge percentage is done by these small and medium enterprises.
I agree with you regarding to the economic tissue of Morocco, and not only the small companies, but also the big companies necessitate the guarantee of the government. And
for sure.
A risk. That's why I ask this question.
Yeah. So
to speak English.
Please, we keep hearing what the government can do for us, but what can we do for our country? we do. This is a hard question, Mr. Agnew. Yeah, it is.
So,
it is.
It is. It's even not only political, social, philosophical. It's really a big question.
Yeah.
So we do have 4 attendees who want to ask questions. So we will. I give them all the floor. And you can answer to all the questions, because to have more time. So we have Mr. Al-Ghazawi Zakaria, Mr. Hassan Nadis, Mrs. Lamia, and Mr. Khazaza. So I give you the floor, Mr. Al-Ghazawi, first, and after that, Mr. Dis, Mrs. Lamia, and Mr. Khazaza. So can you introduce yourself before asking the question? And can you be brief, please, so as to help us to be organized and have enough time for everyone. So, yeah, Mr. Al-Ghazawi.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Everyone. You hear me?
We hear you.
Yes. I am Zakaria Al-Ghazawi, Head of Commercial Disputes in Judicial Agency of the Kingdom of Morocco. To thank Mr. Samer for this presentation. I have a question about what is the impact of COVID-19 in Moroccan financial system, and that is the role of control entities to determine the damage by this pandemic. Good day, everyone. Okay. I am of this. Thanks, Mr.
Is it clear, Mr. Agnaw?
So correct me if I'm wrong. What I've heard is the COVID-19 effect and how to get rid of the damage. Am I right?
Yes, impact of COVID-19 in the impact of the COVID-19 in Moroccan financial system, and that it is the role of control entities, the role of police to deny the damage caused by this pandemic. It is clear?
Yeah, I give the floor to, yeah. Is it clear, Mr. Agnaw? Can I give the floor to Mr. Dis?
Yeah. So let me gather all questions and then I'll be, trying
Mr.
to.
Dis, thank you, Mr. Al-Ghazawi, for your question. Mr. Dis?
Yes, Sonia, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You are welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you for the organization of this webinar, and many thanks to Mr. Agnaw for this very interesting presentation. The topic, of course, is very, very large, and we can tackle it from different points of view. But I just want to make some comments and maybe some questions, if I may. First of all, you talked about the central bank and its mission. And here in Morocco, the main mission of the central bank is to have price stability. And there are some questions about what can the central bank do in order to contribute to economic growth. And some people, some experts, they are maybe asking for changing the missions of the central bank in order to be more aggressive in contributing to and to have as objective not only price stability but also economic growth and employment. So this is one. It's a comment or question, as you like. Another comment. You talked about the vulnerability of Moroccan banks to sub-Saharan African countries. Many, or at least rating agencies and also some international financial institutions, they are pointing out this point. But at the same time, of course, it's an exposure, but also it's an opportunity for our banks. And if you see their the banking income of the Moroccan banks involved in Africa, you can see that a large share of their income is coming from Africa, from African countries. So, and at the same time, if you ask the central bank opinion, they said that Moroccan banks are fully provisioned, and even in case of a crisis in Africa, for example, this will not spill over the Moroccan bank. They have fully provisioned their exposure into African countries. Another point is about the market regulators. In Morocco, we have 3 regulators. We have the central bank for the banking sector. We have the ACAPs for the insurance companies, and also we have the IMMC for the stock exchange, and also mutual funds, etc. So, and in other other countries, we can find that we have one body supervising the whole financial system, and this, of course, in Morocco, there are a very close coordination between the three bodies. But it could be a question: do we need to have one financial authority supervising the whole financial sector, or it's good to keep these three bodies? Thank you very much. I will stay here. Thank you.
So can you write your question? You can write it in question and answers, so as we can ask it to Mr. Agnaou. We don't hear you, so I'll give the floor to Mr. Agnaou, if you don't mind, and you can write your question. So please, I'm sorry, we cannot understand your question because it's I think I give the floor to Mr. Agnaou so as to answer to the other question, and I give you Mr. Moussaoui. Can you write your question? Yeah, Mr. Agnaou.
Yeah, do you hear me, please?
Yeah.
Fine. So thanks for all those who have asked, these important questions. It shows that they are really interested in the topic, and I would like to thank them. I'll start with the first question that was about the COVID-19 effect, and then how to get rid of few and the many damages that our economy has been suffering from. During my intervention, I have been referring to some examples. I agree with you. There are other components or parts of how our economy has been suffering from the COVID-19 that I didn't address, because my topic is not about the effect of the COVID-19. It was, as I said at the beginning, the Moroccan financial system in general, so that I can have a discussion. So the effect, there are a lot of them, by the way, and I will start with the main source of money for our country. The remittances from Moroccans residing abroad did diminish a lot. And here, les virements des Marocains résidant à l'étranger. The income from tourism, we are a tourism country, so a lot, has been happening here, and we suffered a lot also from this. Second thing, foreign investments, the huge decrease in foreign investments. But I see a positive side in any crisis. This will push us to rely on ourselves. Go ahead. Shall I go ahead, Mrs. Sonia?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying, yes, there are bad effects, but at least, let's say, this pandemic is pushing every country all over the world to rely on itself. And we've seen the case of Italy, let's say, when it was let alone in Europe, and then other countries. So this will show us a lesson. We rely on ourselves first. And this will push us, me, you, whoever, to consume all what's Moroccan. Because all of us, we keep, let's say, relying on what's, fabricated and, and produced, abroad. We should change this. Here, some of the other effects, but this time, good ones, is that there was a distribution aid to families without work, and we've all have witnessed this. And I said it again, that the 2020 finance bill was updated on the basis of the bad effect. And then some, development of sectorial recovery plans that were really coming from COVID-19 bad effect. With your permission, I'm moving to the second, type of question, and they are mainly about the main missions of Bank al-Maghrib. I agree. I refer to price stability and full employment, but I did limit these two to US. Here, it's mainly price stability. Price stability, as I said, it's through inflation. But inflation itself, there are a lot of things to be said about how it is measured. We all keep saying, oh, the cost of life is going up. And when we see that level of inflation and how it's measured through the CPI, Consumer Price Index, then we see where it is hurting. Here, the inflation rural and then in certain, regions. So it is a concern. And I agree with you when you say economic growth should follow. And also employment, especially now. A lot of graduates now are having difficulties, and already, and sorry, some of all, all those who are in the job market itself are, losing this. We've seen a case of many corporations, and here I'm referring to Laram, and then what happened with, I'm looking here for the word, les pilotes de ligne. So it is a concern. If this category is losing a job, what about others, where we start now hearing about un licenciement économique supported by local authorities? You see, I agree with you, employment should start being one of the main objectives of our central bank. There were questions about SSA, Sub-Saharan Africa. I agree. Any opportunity goes in line with a threat. So yes, the way I did present it, it's like a threat. No, there is a good side of investing in Sub-Saharan, Africa. Yes, it's politically important, especially for our, Moroccan Sahara, and we are going in the right direction. But, on business-wise and risk, there are some concerns that we have to pay attention to. There was one question about, one entity that, to start regulating, all these important, institutions. So the guy who asked the question referred to La CAPS, Bank al-Maghrib, and l'IMMFC. Probably in US, we have a Security Exchange Commission. Are we going to succeed in setting and having one institution that deals with all these important sectors, namely the insurance, the banking, and then you go with security exchanges? Yes, it is my hope. But, sometimes when you have everything centralized in an institution, it might not lead to the wishes and the objectives we have. So, let's be optimistic and hope for an institution that will control and, supervise all these important sectors. Simusawi Tariq, I think his question was going in line with the Doing Business 2020. I've heard keywords linked to insolvency procedures, but I don't know what was his main question, honestly. I'm sorry.
We are waiting for the question, but go ahead, Mr. Agno. But we can return back to Mr. Musawi after that. But I think his question was about doing business.
Yeah, I know. It's the Win Business 2020, and he was referring to insolvency procedures, but I don't know what was honestly and explicitly his question. And I'm honestly saying sorry to him. Because, let me see. I can see it here. Do you think? Oh, because can somebody read it for me? Because I don't see the set of questions. Sorry for this.
I don't see it's true, but Mr. Agnew, if you don't mind, I'll give the floor to Mr. Lassali, who wants to ask a question, and Mr. Ayoubi. I think we can consider that we don't have enough time. I'll give the floor to Mr. Lassali and Mr. Ayoubi, and in the end, we will go to Mr. Moussaoui, so as to understand more about his question. Yeah, Mr. Lassali.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who participates to this webinar, despite their busy schedule. Who don't know me, my name is Khalid Lassali. I'm responsible of the Institute of Finance. I would like to thank Dr. Agnew for accepting our invitation and share with us his expertise.
Yeah.
Dr. Agnew, as you clearly explained during your presentation, the Moroccan Public Authority modernized the national financial system in order to increase its efficiency and improve its attractivity at the international level. And as you said, Samir, many reforms have been initiated in terms of and supervising, and several entities have emerged, like the Moroccan Capital Market Authority and the Supervisory Authority of Insurance and Social Welfare. And we have a lot of products, Sukuk, Participation Bank, Microfinance, creation of Casablanca Finance City. My question is, have all these reforms made it possible to converge toward international standard? And I have a second question. You spoke during your presentation of the ranking of Morocco at the Doing Business 2020. And I want to ask you, in your opinion, what are the concrete measures that the Moroccan authorities must take to be among the top 50 countries in this Doing Business ranking? Thank you, Dr. Agnew.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lassali. Before giving the floor to Mr. Ayoubi, we have the contribution of Mrs. Maroufi and Mrs. Habibi. They write a question. So if you don't mind, Mr. Agnew, I will read their contribution. So Lamia Maroufi, I work at the Department of Studies and Financial Forecasts. Firstly, Mr. Agnew, we know how busy you are. So we are grateful that you would take the time to prepare and spend this afternoon with us. As known, variations in agriculture production, the terms of trade and competitiveness introduce volatility in the, which in turn affects the creditworthiness of some borrowers. I just want to know how agriculture's volatility could introduce a significant degree of uncertainty in the Moroccan financial system. Thank you. So the contribution of, is it clear, Mr. Agnew?
So is it mainly here about the uncertainty linked to agricultural production?
Yeah. How agricultural volatility could introduce a significant degree of uncertainty in the Moroccan financial system. So the impact of agriculture field. The contribution of Mrs. Habibi. In your point of view, Mr. Agnew, why Moroccan companies, and especially small and medium ones, representing more than 90% of our national companies, don't choose to access to Casablanca Stock Exchange, preferring rather to have loans from banks? And how can we develop the activity of our national stock exchange system? So I know, Mr. Agnew, and all attendees, all of this are whole questions, big questions, but we try to answer. So you have for about 15 minutes. But before that, I give the floor to Mr. Ayoubi. Mr. Ayoubi.
Hello, everybody. Do you hear me?
Mr. Ayoubi.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I am.
So please, can you?
I am El Ayoubi Amin. I am an auditor in the auditing department in the Ministry of Finance, EGF. First of all, I want to congratulate the Institute of Finance for the choice of the subject. It's a very interesting one. And also, I thank the Institute of Finance for giving us the opportunity to express ourselves and also practice English. So I want to thank Dr. Agnew for his brilliant presentation. And I will be very brief. I have one question. So it's about the linkage between the Moroccan financial markets and the real economy. In your opinion, doctor, is there a strong interdependence between the Moroccan real economy and the financial markets? In other words, does the Moroccan financial reflects what happened in our economy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ayoubi. So I give you the floor, Mr. Agnew. You have about 15 minutes.
Oh, it's even more than what I needed.
No, about 5 minutes.
Five. Oh, fine. So I'll start with the last question of C. Ayoubi. I think from his question, the answer is clear. The answer is no. And why? And we all know it. We have a high percentage of underground economy. You see, so the answer to your question, sorry, the financial market is not representing the real economy. I mean, the state has been trying a lot to push, let's say, every citizen to bring his money, her money back to the banking system. As far as, you know, there is a lot of underground economy, informal economy, then we will still remain far from, let's say, having a good, you know, correlation between both the financial market and the real economy. And here we are moving into payment of taxes. So who is paying taxes here in Morocco? Me and you, I mean, employees. Corporations, it is a concern. For us, we only get the net. I mean, corporations, we all know, they have three financial statements. One that is the real one, and then one that is submitted to banks, and then one that is submitted to the government entities. So once we move into more transparency, into more me and you as a normal citizen paying our taxes, and then even voting. You see, I'm sorry I'm moving here to political things, but we keep blaming, you know, and yelling once we see some, you know, in the government not representing us, but we did allow them to be there, so we should vote. And here I'm saying vote X, Y, Z, but at least have that spirit of voting so that we change things. So yes, the citizen is. I still go back to human development. It is important, and this will push me to go to the comment of Sir Sali and his two questions. The efficiency, attractiveness, the reforms, the Casablanca, CFC, are we converging to international standards? Yes, but we are doing it slowly. Are there concrete measures? So to me, modestly, Morocco has three main, things that it should definitely pay attention to. First, it's education. I start again. Human, grand H, l'homme et la femme. So education, health, and legal system. As long as these three, sectors or things are not well taken care, well financed with good productivity, efficiency, and this will go into the doing business 2020. You see, so we start with these three things. Once we take care of these three main and important sectors, then I think we will be, doing a lot Now I move to Mrs. Maroufi. So agriculture, yes, we do rely on pluviometry, and this what makes it more uncertain, more volatile, as she said, and I agree with her. But I think lately Morocco has moved to few sectors, l'aéronautique, l'automobile. So this is at least, you know, it's good rather than waiting, as we say à la Marocaine, or not. I'm sorry to say it, because this is how we should be, you know, protected and no more rely on, you know, pluviometry. Yes, there is a bit of volatility there, and we should be, and I think Morocco has succeeded a bit. Si Habibi has been asked and confirmed that small and medium enterprises represent more than 90%. Why are not they moving into being listed, côté à la bourse, listed at the Casablanca Stock Exchange? The reason is easy. They have to disclose their financial statements. For them to be listed, pour être coté en bourse, you have to respect the law. You have to show that all your financial statements are approved, and that's what's missing. So here, they keep relying on banks. Yeah, so these banks, to some extent, I keep saying that our banks are not taking so much risks, but with our last royal directions and directives, they were pushed, yes, I repeat it, they were pushed to give and help, let's say, these early, you know, junior, you know, entrepreneurs. And I hope, you know, we will be happy to see the outcome of all this. And with this, I will finish, with your permission, with this optimistic way of seeing how our country is, you know, evolving.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Agnew. We have challenges as citizens, as governments, as companies, so as to increase our economy, and we hope that it will have an impact of to progress our economy. So thank you, Mr. Agnew, for your time and valuable insights. Thank you, all of you, for your contributions and this interesting debate. This is our first experience, first webinar in English, but it will be not the last, I'm sure. We look forward to welcoming you again for another event. So thank you so much.
Merci. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.